actually, by chance, find the same loan. Probably not, but the principle that I'm trying to show will be the same. But what you'll see here is a display that's very, very similar. It's actually not the same loan, but it's very, very similar, the display, to what we saw at the borrower end. So you have first this panel that shows the high-level loan details. This one is actually showing late, so it means it's missed a payment, a repayment. The contract is there, just as in the borrower display. But the loan details here is just showing, obviously, the one loan slice, which in this case is 110. And then the instalments, roughly the same, well, exactly the same display as we saw on the borrower. This one will end with late at the bottom because this is the current status. Then the repayment plan, and then the loan account statement. So you'll see we use a similar format so that that can be presented and understandable throughout the system, actually. Now, the only other thing to show you, I think, here, to move on swiftly, I mean, there are a lot of automated features for lending. We have lending portfolios, whereby the lender can set up different risk structures of how they want to lend their money within each portfolio being different, and then the lending is automated, and there are settings that can be configured to do the exact lending that they want to do. The final thing to show you is there is a full-blown dashboard which really shows all the details of this particular lender's lending, and with every single, well, almost down to each individual type of payment. Now, this display, again, takes a few seconds just to render because it's collecting information, a lot of information from a lot of different databases. So what you see here is the full-blown dashboard, which, let me open up the pop-ups or the drill downs, if you like, so that you see the full thing. So this is showing, at the top left, under the heading Lending Dashboard, there's a panel which really shows the same information that he saw, the summary information that he saw on his home page when he logged in. But then the two panels beneath that are showing basically a sources of funds and a uses of funds statement. So in the sources of funds, you have any deposits, less any withdrawals, any account adjustments, interest received, minus fees that have been paid, and so on, any bad debts and so on. So, and these pop-ups really provide greater detail. So, for example, this one's net fees paid or to be paid, of which there are a lot of different types of fees, and what that tries to do is break down the different types of fees that have been paid, including some fees received. But I won't talk in detail about how that comes about, but it can do. But then at the bottom here, the other display is the uses of funds. So how much has been lent out, how much is currently under offer, and again that's broken down to different markets. We haven't spoken too much about the different markets here, but we do have different markets available within this system. And then finally, we spoke briefly about the lending portfolios. So this pop-up at the bottom of the right-hand column, oh, sorry, hopefully somebody will pick that up in the room, is actually showing where the funds are deployed across these portfolios. I hope you can still hear me while that one goes. It shows at the top an uncommitted amount, and then it shows three different lending portfolios called 1, 2, and Test, which are represented by those amounts that are within those portfolios currently as yet funds still to be lent. So the total available funds to be lent is this 13,123.06, and yet some of that is committed in portfolios and some is completely uncommitted, so that breaks down that particular thing. There are other details which you can drill right down to a very, very detailed level. I won't do that now, but there are audit trails on the fees deducted and interest. Obviously, it's done on a daily basis, and it may change in terms of its construction. So these links right at the bottom of the page lead you into that. But again, it's perhaps too detailed for this particular discussion. Okay, so I think that's all I want to cover, showing you the front end of the site. Are there any questions on any of that? There are other features I haven't mentioned, like the profile details of the users. This top menu, top left menu, is general facilities, so pay in and withdraw money. These are the various facilities, and editing profile details, like if a user changes his bank details.
Johnson here, can I interrupt?
Yes, of course.
Okay, in the initial first page you showed for the question and answer chat session where the lender or the borrower can send a question and the other party will reply.
Yes.
How do you prevent them identifying themselves in that chat mode?
How do you prevent
it done manually, or is it do you have a method to do it?
Well, all of these things can be forced through our approval mechanism at the back end. In a minute, when we get to show you the back end of the site, we'll show you that there is an approval mechanism, and you can force any transactions you want through there. So if you did want to monitor what was being asked and what was being said, that is the way to do that. At the moment, I can't show you that because at the moment it's a direct system, and so it's direct entry, which is emailed directly to the user. So if this lender asked a question, it would be emailed directly to the borrower. The borrower would then come back in and answer that question, and those would all directly show within the panels that we looked at. Okay. Right. So we'll switch to the back end of the site now. So let's just log out. So we start right at the beginning. So this is the, I said this is built on this open source software. Oh, hang on, I've got a text from somewhere. Oh, Mark has been dropped out. Let me just see if I can add him back into the call. Okay, well, it doesn't matter too much because Mark's seen it before. He's there to monitor that I'm saying the right things. So we'll have to hope for the best. Mark, are you there? No. Okay, but we'll continue anyway. Okay, so this is the login, the back end, the back office of the site. We'll log in here again from my password thing. And this is basically how it looks at the back end. This is the control panel, and there are lots of things here. Basically, you have a lot of things that are to do with the website. And so if you see these menus along the top that I'm just highlighting, these are all generally things that are to do with the website rather than our particular software. And then we've added 3 menus here, which are specifically things to do with our software and the way that it works. However, we've fully integrated our system into the Joomla environment, so we just provided these separate menus just for clarity of operation, basically. So think of it in terms of there are 3 key parts of this. We call it the platform software, which is all the infrastructure for running any form of crowdfunding or peer-to-peer. This providing all the stuff like the accounts, the user information, the payment systems, and anything that's necessary as infrastructure for doing the peer-to-peer applications. Then we have the application itself, which is the second item I'm just highlighting here. We just call it P2P lending. So those are like two separate components, and I'll show you how we work with those. Now there is a third, it's very important, and that's all the user management aspects. Now although I said that's really part of the infrastructure, we use a separate component, and I'll show you the benefit of that is that it's very easy to configure and change. The information you may want to store on a borrower or a lender may not be the same as another user wants to, and it's very easy to reconfigure that and say, I don't want that bit of information, but I do want these bits which you haven't currently got. And so we can very, very easily and quickly add them. There is a final small part, and this is called Profile Pro. It's more about the profiles of users. This enables us to have different types of user within the system. We've only spoken up to now about people being lenders and borrowers, but you can have companies, for example, and a company profile may look very different. Obviously, there would be corporate information stored about the user. You might have charities as a user, or other types of organisation, for example. So that this Profile Pro enables one to have these different types of profile. We then have very extensive settings, which I'll come into in a moment, which are all these configuration things I mentioned before. Sorry, Mark's just asking me whether he's not seeing anything, but he's checking that everybody else is. So you're all still seeing the screen, okay? Yeah. Do I take that as a yes? Hello?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes? Okay, good, good. Sorry, I was getting no response, so I wondered whether I dropped everybody. Okay, so let's have a look at into the detail. We're going, first of all, to the platform component. Now, again, I'm not going to go into detail because we could be here for 4 hours. I'm going to pick out some key points here, and if there's anything else you want me to cover, perhaps you need to sort of ask specifically. So, as I said, the whole system is built around a sort of banking standard approach of having approvals for many of the important things that happen. So loan requests, very important. Any movements of money, very important. And we force all of these things that we regard as important through this, this approval mechanism. And you see here that this is initial approvals, because it's a dual approval mechanism. We have initial approvals and final approvals. And you'll see here a list of transactions, withdrawal requests, loan dispersals, account adjustments. All these things are different transactions that we've decided that we want to force through this process. Right down at the bottom, manual installment, we've mentioned before. So, and the way this operates is the user opens it up, sees the details. I'll go on to final approvals because it's broadly the same. And I'm not sure we've got anything. Yeah, here's one. Here's a loan request, for example, and this shows a similar data to what you had at the front end for a loan request, but in fact there's a little more information added, like security details and things like any history that this borrower might have had. So it tries to provide information to the operator here so that they can make their decisions and approvals. It also provides links to some of these external services like the credit reference agencies and the security checks I mentioned before, like residence and bank details and so on. Those are the approvals. There are two other things here. One is there's an approval history, so you can look back at anything within the entire system that has been approved and see, you know, the details of the dual approvals. So a very big long list there. And there, I'll show you one other thing because it shows the approach to what we call refers, or anything where we need further information. Now this includes credit decisions where we say we're not sure about this one, we want some more information from this user. We want them to upload further documents. It could be bank statements or a pay slip from their employment or whatever. But this also impacts the anti-money laundering side of things, particularly on the lender side, where we may need more identity information from them. So if I click this, it's called, we call it the list of credit decision engine and AML anti-money laundering refers, the referrals it should be really. But and so what we see here is, firstly at the top, I hope you can read in the small letters, there's a whole list really, which is the legend as to what information we're requesting. And it says at the top, passport, picture page, driving license, utility bills, bank statement, payslip, or other. Now, the system is automated to the extent that it decides, through our very high level of automation, what is actually required in this instance. So depending on whether it's a credit decision refer or an anti-money laundering refer, it will know what information it needs to request. And it will request this by email to the user. And so what it does then is it creates an entry in this list of the requested upload documents. Now all these documents can be uploaded to the website, and when they are, these numbers appear in this column that's headed uploaded documents. So at first they're showing blank like these ones at the bottom, and then as the documents are uploaded, these numbers are filled in. And when we have all of the ones that we need, the operator can look, for example, by clicking on the number and actually see the document that's been uploaded. In this case, a utility bill. So this shows the principle of how we deal with the upload of documents and the display of documents to the operator. So it may be, of course, that in these days of Photoshop and so on, that you still need the original documents, in which case those can be requested. Okay, moving on quickly then, the next heading we have is the anti-money laundering list. I won't go into the detail on this, but I've described in principle how it works. And those who are verified directly are listed here, and those that are rejected are listed as rejected. But there are these refers that I've just shown you how they would be processed. Next important point being the user accounts. Now, this is configured so that every user can have, if they want, they can be both lender and borrower. There's nothing to prevent that, of course, in general. Someone would either be a borrower or a lender. So if we choose one that we were just looking at before, this Joe Blogs as the username of the borrower. So let's look at the borrowing account. What we see is the similar information to what you saw at the front end for the borrower login, but you see it in a rather more compact form, more for the back-end operations. So you see all the actions that are required, you see the loan request waiting approval and so on. You're seeing all the panels that we saw at the front end, basically. So the information is the same, which makes it very easy to answer queries from the borrower or whatever. Similarly, on the lender side, we were looking at lender 2, I think. You have a very similar display to that full dashboard that I showed you. This is the one that takes a few seconds to render on this development system, so just give it a few seconds. Sorry, taking the opportunity to have a quick drink. Right. And so you see basically the same display again that we saw at the front end with the pop-ups and so on. So again, all the same information is available, and then all those drill downs at the bottom. You can look at this lender's current lending bids that are outstanding on loans, and also the loan book. There are other things available within the user accounts. You can look into any of the automated settings of the lender. If he's doing automated lending, the settings are available there. And also there's a complete, for the lender, complete bank statement of all the money movements on his site. So this is configured really like a bank statement. So you see paid out, paid in, paid out, balance. It's a running balance, and it shows every single movement, every principal repayment, interest payment, withdrawals, and so on, every possible movement. So you've got the full audit trail there. Okay. Adjustments I'll skip over. Now the next bunch of stuff is, we call it the API user security. Now API is the application programming interface. Now we built this system with a complete interface for all the function that is available at the front end of the site is available through an API. In addition to that, we have APIs for lots of the external services like the credit referencing service, the payment services, and so on, anything we have services that check bank account details, residential addresses, all sorts of things. So all of those operate through APIs. And of course, we control the use of the API by setting up the user with an IP address, so they can only use it from a specific IP address, and with a login and a password and so on. So that basically that maintains the security of the site. Now, again, I won't go into any more detail on the APIs, but we then have a mechanism for suspending users, so that if there's any activity that looks suspicious or potentially fraudulent or whatever, they can be suspended as users, which prevents any transactions occurring while investigations go on or whatever. Finally, we have this list security checks item. I'll just show you that briefly. These are address checks and bank details checks. And we have various interfaces for the operation of those. And you'll see in this fourth column, OBA and OAC. OBA is the own bank account test, and OAC is the own address check, the residency. And again, we use web services systems so that we don't actually send letters. We use a web service to actually deliver a letter to a user residential address. But again, these are all configured things that you may or may not want to use. Next, very important point at the top there, fee account. We have a fee summary, which is 1 line per month, with all of the columns representing different types of fees that you may or may not be using within your site. And so that's just at a summary level, as I say, 1 line per month. But then there's a detail level, which gives you every single individual fee that's been generated. And because this is a huge long list, hundreds of fees, it has some filters at the top, so you can filter it between 2 dates, between one date and another, or you can filter it for a particular type of fee. So, for instance, the secondary market seller's fee, for instance, we wanted to look at, we just click this go button, and then all of it's just showing us that particular type of fee. And then you could filter that as well between dates if you wanted to. So that shows you the actual fee accounts. Now again, there are breakdowns of particular types of fees that we could go further, like the lender fees. These are very detailed drill downs because we can charge, again, it depends how you want to run this, but you can charge monthly fees on lenders, and you can do it on the basis of the money lent out. So in effect, the fee has to be calculated on a day-wise basis, and that's what we do there in that drill down. Again, the daily interest again is a day calculation, and so that's a very detailed drill down. Compensation fund I mentioned before. I won't go into any detail on this, but it is there and it is fully automated. The late arrears and default system is important because that just shows the current status of any of these loans that are in arrears or late and how you want to deal with them. And again, if you're dealing with them by virtue of the compensation scheme, then that's automated. But also we've got an interface to a debt collecting agency, which is by email. And here you have a link that says, okay, I don't like what's going on that one, I want to send it to the debt collecting agency now. And by clicking that link, again, that will be forced back through the approvals mechanism and then on to the debt collector. So it's a way of controlling all of the late arrears and default situation. Perhaps well, we'll come on to the actual loan details. Remember, we're still going through the sort of infrastructure component here. There's a whole bunch of stuff on payments. Everything within the payment system can work on a manual basis as well as on an automated basis. So we have things like, there's a report here that shows the deposits that have been notified. So at the front end, a user can notify that he's making a deposit. This is a lender. And then you can check the bank account, for example, and if the money is there, then manually you can come back and say, yes, okay, that money is received. So you see if I scroll down here, there are a lot of these with the link for received. But in fact, you can also run this as a completely automated system whereby you either upload and download files to the bank of the details, or it can be done by web services if that's available. And so those, all of these, you've got deposits, withdrawals, direct debits, direct credits, and all the different banking potential interfaces that are available. Settings I'll leave for a moment, but we'll come on to that. But another very important thing is this system runs potentially up to 30 or so automated programs that are running on a timed basis. Those run on everything from, let's say, every minute, for example, to the automated lending matching process, right through to, we have a number that run every few hours, and some that are daily, some that are weekly, some monthly, and so on. And so all those programs we log when those programs are run, in addition to a lot of other events that occur. And this event log really logs everything that's going on within the system, how many records have been processed and so on. So it's a complete audit trail of what's happened. Sorry about all these noises in the background here. There are some very, very high volume events. I mentioned, like every minute you could be running your matching engine for the automated lending, so you wouldn't necessarily want those to log into this event log. So if I scroll down here, you see this ALO cron. There's a whole line of them here. Now ALO is our automated lending, and so we've obviously turned that on to investigate something and look at something, and we get, every few seconds we get an entry there. But then you can turn that off in settings, so the high volume ones are controllable from that point of view. I'm not sure whether the affiliate mechanism I should be talking about here, but we do have a mechanism for taking in traffic, both lending and borrowing traffic from other sites, so people we call affiliates, and you can reimburse them on the basis of the traffic that they pass you. So we have a fully integrated affiliate mechanism for doing that. We particularly use the price comparison websites, for example, for loans, which will pass traffic to the site. And that's the way of logging them for reimbursement. Okay, so that's very quickly the platform component. So now I'll switch to the lending component. Here again, you see broadly what we saw at the front end. So you can see those loans that we looked at before. They're also these are the open market, visible market. There's also the hidden market that we call the matching market, which is going on in the background, unseen by everybody. And in this case, there's only one loan actually going on within there. And then you have a list of, processing. I don't think we'll have any that are in the processing at the moment, no. But then also you've got the loans that the borrower has declined for some reason, and there's always a reason given, and this penultimate column you'll see there is the reason why the borrower has declined that particular loan. The next bunch of things is the administration rejected. Now these are for, again, all sorts of reasons, and you'll see the reasons for these rejections are in themselves within a file in this system. So if you want to add a reason that we haven't got at the moment within those reasons, those can easily be added and configured. And then the credit decision engine rejected, which again will give the reason why. This is showing all sorts of test stuff, so it's not particularly valid to show you, but those are ones where the credit hasn't matched up to our standards, and therefore the loan has been rejected. Okay, the next important one is confirmed loans. Obviously, within the system, what this is doing is showing you every single loan that has been confirmed as accepted by the borrower, and this includes loans that are in different stages. Some of them haven't been dispersed yet, and there's a loan paid status column that shows you that. The one at the top that's showing a 1 in that column is saying that that has been dispersed, and showing the bank account number and so on. But the one beneath it is showing a 0, which means it has not yet been dispersed. And in this case, the dispersal has been requested via PayPal, for example. and these other legends show direct credit, bank transfer, and so on, different ways. We have a faster payment system in the UK that can be used. There are various different payment methods showing. But this also shows the final column is the loan status. And we see that here, looking down, most of them are okay, but there's one showing late. Not sure if it's the one that we looked at before, but another one showing late, and then one showing arrears. Now again, you configure these terms the way you want to use them, but we've configured the terms late, arrears, and default to mean 1 month overdue, 2 months overdue, and 3 months overdue. But again, you configure that in the settings on the site. Are we all okay so far?
Yeah, so far so good, yep.
Yeah, good, okay. Just need to check that you're still there, hasn't dropped out. Okay, then under that loans heading, which I've just shown you confirmed loans, there's obviously the loan book, which is the position of the platform at this very moment in terms of the loans made and then what is outstanding on them now. So there's an amount outstanding column, there's a principal repaid and interest paid column, and an arrears column showing those situations. So that is the actual loan book as of this moment. And then we've got different reports. Under this, we've got the repaid loans. These are the fully repaid, finished ones. Loan monies dispersed. So this is just looking at the money that's gone out from the site and any deductions that have been made for fees and so on, fees paid by borrowers. And that's it. I'll skip over these CIP lender fees. I'll skip over the quotations. I mentioned briefly the secondary market, whereby this shows a current list of all the, well, there are only 3 we saw at the front end. So these are the 3 loan parts that are for sale currently at the front end of the site. But it also shows you the complete transaction history. So you can look at every single deal that's been done on the secondary market here and scrolling down through all of those transactions. There's a list lenders report. I won't click on this one because this one is doing a lot of work and it takes quite a few, probably over a minute to construct. But what that one's doing is listing every single lender and their headline details of how much funds they have available, how much they've lent out, how much is available for lending out, and so on. Lots of other columns and categories, but a very useful one to look at. But it's not an instantaneous report, but I'll just tell you about it to save time. And then right at the bottom here, we've got a whole bunch of stuff under the heading Site Statistics. Now, the most important one to show you is what we call it the daily CMA reconciliation. Now, CMA in our terminology is the client money account. And the way that the simplest way that we found to run peer-to-peer is to have one single bank account through which all the client money or customer money moves. In fact, it is a requirement of the regulator in the UK that it operates this way. So this money is not the money that belongs to the platform. It's not part of the assets of the platform at all, or the company that's running the site. It is customer money and has to be segregated and by regulation here. Now, it may not be the regulation there, so you may not run it the same way, but I just mentioned this being the reconciliation. So what we want to do here is every day make sure that the money that we're showing on our bank account statement for this account is the same as what our system is showing. And the way that we do that is a very comprehensive report that shows every single customer money movement type, and it lists them every single day, and it produces this report. And so all of these heading, I hope you can read them because it's quite small text, but they're all things like lenders' deposits received, lenders' withdrawals, fees paid, repayments made, and so on. It's every single possible movement. Now, there is a drill down here because some of these are quite high level in terms of the fees paid. You may want to look at all of the individual fees. And so this is another important point to stress to you that we've always made within this system drill downs to the very detailed level. It may be that you don't want those, but just to make the point that if I click the drill down, it will then break down the daily fees. So you see here now all the individual types of fee and anything else that you want to drill down in. The other one that we've got here is the change in the compensation scheme fund. So it shows every single change. So that's the daily CMA reconciliation, the DCR as we call it. Now we have appended a little calculation at the bottom which said, okay, if that's the amount that's in our customer money account, how much is actually available for lending at this moment? And so we make a number of deductions here, which are things like the current bids or the any withdrawals that are pending, any fees that are yet to be paid, and so on and so on. And we deduct all those, and we arrive at an actual global amount of how much is within our platform now to be lent out. Operating peer-to-peer is really all about liquidity. So what we're trying to get at here is to ensure the maximum liquidity of the funds that we have available to match borrowers and lenders. Now that's the key statistical report, but then there are lots of others that we have. The auto lend statistics, this, I won't go through the detail of this, but this is showing all of the money that has been committed to automatic lending and the requirement for borrowing, and showing the matching process that is going ahead within the system. So that's a pretty big and complex report. And then we have others. We have we call it an enhanced version of that because it's actually just looking at the high-level numbers that cast all sorts of different ways, by loan amount, by loan term, by credit reference, by age of borrower, and so on. So that's just slicing and dicing the data different ways. We also have a report that we call the Daily General, which is all of the high-level statistics. The borrower demand, loan requests submitted, the lender funds available, the bids, current matches, and all of this is done on a today amount and today value, and then total amount and total value, sorry, number I should say. So the number of members that we have within this system are showing us 40 at the moment, for example, at the top. All the statistics again on the bidding, the matching, the late, any loans that are late or in arrears, it's giving you all the statistics on those. And then the rates and average rates down at the bottom, and then finally the secondary market. We have one called real-time stats, which is just the latest of everything, the latest bid, the latest match, the latest confirmed loan, showing the high-level numbers again involved there. And then we have ones that are looking at the loan book against the CS, which is our compensation scheme. And so that enables you to monitor that you are collecting enough within the fund if you're going to do that. We have a default statistics report, which again is cut 3 different ways, showing the late arrears and default situation by credit reference, by loan amount, and by loan term. And then we have, well, the quarterly report is one that our regulator in the UK has demanded, which configured it so you can do this report between any 2 dates. So the way that it's run in the UK is it's quarterly, so we have to run it for a full 3 months, and then it generates the statistics of outstanding loan book, new lending, principal repaid, new lending flow, and so on, current number of lenders, current number of borrowers, and so on. Oh, finally, there's one that's just a breakdown of users by lenders and borrowers, and then by male and female and age group. I think this was a PR company that wanted this rather than a serious financial statistic.
I understand.
Okay, I've gone now. Let's see. I'm just looking down the list to make sure that I've covered. Oh yes, very important point that I haven't covered is. I'm sorry. Before I go on, did I hear a question or something in the background there?
No, we're good.
No. Okay. We've talked about the event log, and we've talked about things like approvals and so on. Now, the other thing that is integral with the way that we built this software is that all of the text strings that you see within our software, both front end and back end, So everything you're seeing on this current page, these menu headings and items and so on, the column headings within the reports and so on, all of these are configured in a language file. Now, because we've done this for both the front end and the back end of the file, it makes it very simple for us to configure a multilingual site. And the one that I showed you briefly right at the beginning, which we're implementing at the moment in Lithuania, is in fact showing you, I'll just show you how this happens. This is a site that at the moment is in both English and Lithuanian. So, I mean, this is just the website stuff, but if I click on the Lithuanian button, it actually then just changes from one to the other. This is always done by showing the flag or whatever it is, the language title at the top. Now, okay, I'm just showing you sort of website stuff at the moment, but if I log in, and if you just bear with me 1 second to look at, for instance, we'll look at a borrower, so it looks familiar to what you've seen anyway. Okay, this is just another version of what we saw before, so it's broadly the same information. This is blogs, actually, it's even the same user. May not be the same data because this is on a different site now, but you can see there. This is all in English. Now, the data within the actual loan requests themselves won't change with this, but you'll see the principle. But what we've got here is everything showing in English. Now, if I'd actually logged in as Lithuanian at the front end, what we'll see now is, for some reason it's logged me out, but it shouldn't have done that, but let's log in anyway again. Okay, so what you see now is exactly the same display. Oh, now Google has interrupted me and translated it, but sorry, I've got to go back to original. So this is now what you're seeing is everything in Lithuanian, all of the headings, or you may see in the data, the car for wife and Android test and things like that, but that's embedded in the data, so we can't change that. But if this had been entered within the Lithuanian language, you would just see everything here in Lithuanian. So you can see the principle. Now that was very easy to achieve for them, because all they did was have to take our language file, which I'll show you briefly the way that it works. I'll just switch back quickly to the other site where I have the language file. Go to the front end and the lending component. And what you see here now is the way the language file works. You see in uppercase characters on the left, and with no spaces within them, you will see a series of characters. Let's take LL_title and then equals title. Now that is the word that will appear on the site when using the English language file. So what happens when you translate this into another language, say Lithuanian or Hindi or whatever it is this file is taken and the word is translated. So whatever the word title is in the other language is entered within those quote marks, and this process is done for all of these text strings, and then that file entered into the system, and basically then that translates everything that you see at the front end of the or even back end of the site.
Understood.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So it is a very important point, especially if there is a multilingual requirement. Okay, I think I've covered all the topics now. I'm having a quick glance down my list. Anybody on the IBM side tell me that I haven't covered the list?
Covered the automation part, Tim, and how little is required manually for the day-to-day operations?
Yes, well, I've mentioned a high level of automation, but it's worth saying that this has really been a design consideration for us right from the start. Actually, what I haven't shown you is just settings, but I don't want to go into details here. I'll just show you the extent of the settings rather than talking through. But again, the focus has been to provide the most highly automated system that is possible to reduce the operator requirement and that obviously makes it lower cost to run, which is really where peer-to-peer is, where its big advantage is. It's so much cheaper than the banks can offer, and so we just tried to keep it to the manual intervention to the absolute minimum. Quickly, just to show you these settings. Everything can be configured. We hope that we can really deal with virtually any business model that you care to throw at it. All of these things here are to do with, well, they're under groups of headings. Some up here at the top, we've got this configuration I told you about, how you want to use the terms for late arrears and default. What is their meaning? You've got limits for interest rates. You can pay a rate on the holding accounts if you want to. The DCA email said that I told you about the debt collector interface by email. Those are all the details of how that works. Then we have a whole bunch of stuff with different banking and payment interfaces for the different types of payment. So here you have deposits, repayments, withdrawals, loan dispersals. You can apply fees or not as you wish for different types of payment. We've got a number of different banking interfaces which can be selected or not, or we can add to bank account details, security checks and how they work. Finally, everything, well, I haven't mentioned too much about this actually, everything is confirmed by email. You can even use SMS as a plug-in on the system, but here's an email template that just shows how your email wants to look. So those are really the more infrastructure related settings. What I'll do quickly is actually switch to our latest software version when we come onto the lending settings. This is a security issue. It logs you out if you don't do anything for a while. This is important because we've put in now facilities for configuring down to individual loan level settings. So what we've got here, a lot of, we call them global parameters for the markets that you want to run, the visible market or the automated matching market, whether you're doing business loans or personal loans, whether they're secured or unsecured. And then we have actually 3 different loan types. We've only really talked about the standard amortizing loan, but we've got a revolving credit type loan and an interest-only loan. But each loan type of loan that you configure generates its own here configuration block, which you can then go into and configure the maximum, minimum. This one hasn't been done yet, but let's choose one that has been done. So you have maximum and minimum loan sizes, and then how you want them to work in the various markets, so that you save the loan settings individually. Then there are lots and lots of settings. Again, I'm not going to go into, but which covers things like fees, how you want credit reference information shown. The fees, for instance, you can have a simple mechanism, which is a flat fee and a % fee, or you can have a tabular type of mechanism, which shows the entry of tabular. Secondary market configuration, settings and fees and so on. We have a pooled lending service I haven't mentioned at all, but we call it Easy Lend. It's designed to provide the easiest possible lending experience, and when that is controlled very much from the back end, and there are a lot of settings here to control that. Compensation scheme settings for how you want that to work. The automated auto lend, we call it, the matching engine settings, which each one can be configured as how you want that to work in terms of the matching process and algorithms. Various other things, again, terms and conditions. The bank client money account that I mentioned before, so this is the one that's the segregated client money, customer money. Event logs, you remember I mentioned the high volume. These are the high volume event logging things that you keep disabled unless you want to particularly look at one, and then you enable it, and then it would log. Various lending calculator settings. You can use entered figures or derived figures to show the lenders and the borrowers. And then at the bottom here, if you do have an interface, an automated interface with a credit reference agency, these are the things that can be potentially set within settings. Now, it's worth also saying, I'll just quickly switch to the other component, and just to mention emails, everything within the system is confirm by email, and of course you have email settings here whereby this is a whole list of all the different emails that come out of the system to confirm various transactions. And then as the platform operator, you can configure those as to whether you want those to be mandatory, the top right column, and then who you want the email to go to, whether it's administration to notify yourselves basically when something's happened, or to the lender or to the borrower, or all of them. And so that's all configurable there. Right, I think that's probably done enough. So are there any particular questions, or have I missed anything?
No, I think this is a fairly elaborate system. I think it covers I think a need for any P2P platform in any market. I mean, I think I can see how customizable it is and how extensive this is. Yeah, one of the things we'll talk, and I guess we'll talk to our friends at IBM, is the integration with the PCI and how that's supposed to happen. So, Tim, I don't know if you're familiar with.
When you say PCI, do you mean payments?
Yeah, no, I was coming to that, Tim. So, if you're not familiar with PCI, PCI is the IBM's analytics product, and right. So we want to plug that in, or we've been thinking of plugging that in for credit scoring and kicking up all the business rules that we want to set up in the system.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's interesting because, of course, this is a database system. It's using a standard MySQL, which is an open source database that's used by many in high volume. And I'm sure that we can plug the data into the PCI product.
Right, that's exactly what we thought as well. So, Johnson, do you have any questions?
No, it's very, very extensive. Thank you for showing. Any chance has this product been used in the Indian scene?
It hasn't been used in the Indian scene at the moment, although we do have one prospect that we've been talking to extensively, who are either at the point of committing with us or deciding not to. We're waiting on that one.
Okay.
Yeah, we've only been marketing the product since November. We got the LendUKIBM site in the UK up and running, with all the automation features, got it running smoothly. So we're fairly early in the selling of the product right now. We have the one site here in the UK and a site in Lithuania will hopefully be going live in the next month or so.
I understand. Great. So as the next step, we'll talk to our friends at IBM about this, and I'm sure they'll communicate back the next set of development with you.
Just one more query. You have not said it. I do not know whether you have it as part of this package separate. How to drive traffic to your site?
Oh, okay. Well, I mentioned briefly the affiliate scheme. So we have arrangements now with about 6 different affiliate organizations. Now, some of them represent a number of price comparison websites. So, for example, they have loan comparisons on them, and so our loans are listed alongside all the banks, for example, and so on. And so if someone looks at our loan offering and then they click through on those price comparison sites, they arrive on our site, and I mean, I didn't show you, but I think you can still see the screen, can you? You're still seeing the screens as before.
Okay.
Is that, so if I click on affiliate activity list, this shows the incoming URL. Now, if you look at the 2 listed at the bottom there, you see the listing only shows up to a certain point. So that means that's been an incoming URL that we've logged within our system. And then if that user then goes ahead and registers and becomes, let's say, a borrower, the right-hand part of that screen is then filled in, showing that they have actually taken out a loan, and then that will then trigger the payment to that affiliate.
Okay.
Now we use an external product as well in combination with this. So, and that external product is called iDev Affiliate. And it does all the basic logging and tracking and all the marketing side, if you like, of the affiliate mechanism.
Okay.
Understand.
And one more query. This prospect that you're talking to in India, is it a P2P or is it another lending? Is a banking entity or a what do you call? Is it a non P2P entity?
Well, they're wanting a pretty much a standard P2P offering, but there are a number of very specific things, or there's a particular slant to their business. But I'm not sure I can really tell you too much about that.
No. The reason I asked you for was something else. If you had spoken to the prospect, you would know what is happening in the Indian scene. What are the regulatory requirements and the kind of the market conditions.
Well,
How much would your system need to be
Cust-
changed? 10%, 20%, 30% to fit into the Indian scene?
Well, let's put it this way. What we've tried to do is convince them that what we've got here is enough for them to start their process, their live running. I mean, I think it's always something that I've spent my entire career designing, building, and marketing complex financial software. And it's something that I've always said to customers, whatever the application, is always try and go with what we've got at the moment. Because the first thing is that you get a much better insight into the product once it's live, and you know how it works, what it does, what it doesn't do, and then you're in a much better position to say what needs to be done. So what we've said to them is go with what we've got, because it does what you want. All the extra things that you want are sort of, in a way, nice to have. So they're add-ons, and you'll be in a much better position once you're live to know and understand how exactly you want those done. And so there are some things which they've identified, but you know, this in a way is part of the discussion, and probably a discussion that we, IBM, will have with you as well. It's always a matter of how one classifies these, you know, whether things are essential or whether they're nice to have.
Correct. Fair enough.
But what we think we've got here is something that does most of the job that you're likely to want, and it is very configurable, so it's very easy for us, if it doesn't quite fit, to make changes very quickly so that it does fit. And I mean, that's the key thing that we're pushing.
Yeah, the issue with the regulators is still very early in the marketplaces, and most of them don't really understand P2P. The UK is fairly advanced with the FCA over here and regulation coming in. Our package has gone through the FCA overview, if you like, and we feel that it can be. It's no big deal to adapt to whatever the market's coming to, but we don't know all the regulatory information for all the different markets yet.
Understand.
Fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
That's good. That's very good.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you, Tim, and thank you, Mark. Go ahead, sorry.
Hey, Tim, Mark, and the clients, Sharad and Johnson and Smith. Thank you so much for attending this call. What we will do as next steps is maybe Mr. Johnson will just get in touch with you. Sharad will get in touch with you Monday probably, and
Fine.
we'll see how we want to move further. And
Okay.
then Tim, maybe I'll connect with you again and give you the feedback, and we can define on the next step. Will that work?
Okay. Yeah. Fine.
Fine. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you very much.
thank you.
We'll sign off now.
Thank you much.